Hello again. We're going to carry on the subject we started yesterday, which was the topic of the sin of Adam, or the primordial sin or original sin. And we're going to go into a third approach now. This approach is going to be Rashi. And again, hopefully, that's what I'm aiming to do, is you see the beauty of the Torah, how you have very different opinions on how to interpret verses. They're all got a solid basis. One focuses on one verse, another sage, another rabbi might focus on a different verse and start interpreting the other verses in light of this other verse, and they come up with different conclusions. But you see the beauty of it is all the ideas meld together with one big tapestry of different ideas with a core which lies under everything, which is always going to be, if you've watched this channel enough times, Giluy Yichud, God revealing his oneness. The reason why God does everything, why everything God does, is for this one reason, to reveal his oneness, because that is the way that revealing means our perception, right? From God's point of view, everything's obviously revealed to him. So when we talk about God revealing something, it's obviously to someone, a being outside of him, which is human beings, or Adam as a whole, right? Adam was spiritually the totality of all mankind. So when we speak about the revelation of his oneness, that means the ability for us to perceive his oneness, which is the main thing which human beings, or the only thing which human beings ultimately can perceive of God, is his oneness, because we can't perceive God directly. We can only perceive him in terms of something which we can perceive from our end, which is by contrast, right? Because we can't perceive God's existence directly. When I mean his existence, I mean his essence directly. And neither can we perceive his attributes directly, because on the core level, God's not made up of parts. So whatever this means, God's essence is at one with his mind, with his attributes, if you can even call them that. Yeah, with his kindness, with his justice. All these things at the root don't have any words. They're undefinable. They're literally part of that. Right. However, there is one aspect, one of his midos, one of his characteristics which we can perceive, which is Yichud, his oneness. Because oneness is sort of a negative sort of perception, in as much as we perceive there isn't anything against him. Right? This is all in the, I hope I said all this in the third Keystone lecture about why God does everything, because that was quite an important part of it. But you'll hear me say things out in different ways at different times, because there's so many ways to say these things, and it's hard to remember every single detail because they're just abundant, different ideas. So that's the idea. So ultimately, this is kind of the secret goal I've got for this channel, to make people realize that you can have all these complex different Devar Torahs, words of Torah and explanations for all sorts of things, but all boils down to this one thing every single time. Yeah, so this might sound like repetition, but you're going to see when we speak about this subject, that's really just a facet of revealing God's oneness, or this subject, or that subject, or this idea. It all comes down to that. And that's basically the verse in chapter 4, verse 41 in Deuteronomy, right, in Parshas Vayeschanan, you should know in your mind, that's knowledge that we spoke about in the proofs lecture, that in Judaism we demand knowledge, not just faith, blind faith, or just belief. We have to be based on something solid. But then we take that knowledge which we have, which is reliable now because it's been tested, or it's been on the balance of evidence or a line of logic, or the idea is reasonable, right? And we say yes, it's true. Then then you drill it in and you return it down to your heart. Ki Hashem hu Elokim, that God, hu Elokim, is the all-powerful, i.e., all the powers in this world. The name of Elokim represents God in it represents God's aspect of being in charge of all forces of the world outside of, well, in creation, I should say, or outside of Him, so to speak. In the heavens above and the land below, there's nothing else. Right? So we're going to see this beautiful idea now, because we touched on this idea with the Ramchal and the Maharal's approach yesterday. And now we're going to we go through a third approach. So let's just recap of the Ramchal and the Maharal and the Ramchal's approach. Okay? So Maharal was a 15th, 16th century sage, right? As we explained yesterday. Usually has a very philosophical way of presenting things, right? Obviously using Jewish terms. The Ramchal is very focused on this idea of seeing the big picture, and especially the idea of Giluy Yichud, revelation of God's oneness. He kind of works that into everything, which he speaks about. The Maharal's approach was Adam's sin was essentially, he thought he had the possibility of rebelling against God, and that's why he thought he better put a safeguard around the tree, make sure don't even touch the tree, Eve, right? Just in case you eat it. So that means he entertained the possibility that something could rebel against God, and that was a mistake in his understanding of God's total oneness and power, right? And that led him to actually end up doing it, because if you have that realization, you fail the test already. So it's just like the Makkah B'Patish, it's just a final hammer blow. Right? You think that someone can fail the test? All right, you'll fail it. And the Ramchal's Mahalach, the Ramchal's Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, lived in the early 1700s. Immense genius, Maharal as well. These people are just incredible human beings, more like angels. So the type of wisdom they have is just mind-boggling. I haven't got time to go through all the incredible things about these people, but these are like standout, sort of like, they're just like, you'd call them today like savants, sort of thing. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly like that, but people who are just like, their minds were just head and shoulders above a regular, what a normal human being can understand. Incredible ideas which come from them. All based on the Torah, of course. Just their way of bringing out the Torah. That's the Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral Torah. The Ramchal's approach was, right, the Maharal's approach was that he thought he could sin. The Ramchal's, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto's approach is that he wanted to reveal God more in the world, right? So he thought that people might not be able to appreciate what would happen if man actually rebelled, because he had the choice in front of him. Am I going to not eat from the tree? If I don't eat, then that's the world to come. I'm with God forever, infinitely. I've done my giving, so to speak. Yeah, I've done my job of bringing God into the body, yeah, by obeying God's command, despite the fact that I have free will to do otherwise. And on the other hand, I've got a genuine choice to rebel. So his calculation was that if I just listen to God, that will it will reveal there's no other power besides God, because even someone who had free will like me chose God, but I could have chosen to rebel against him. And now there could be a question now, according to Adam's thought process. Is there something lacking in God's revelation in the world if I don't show that God's so omnipotent that even if I choose to rebel against him, it's all God's plan, right? Yeah, because through sin, a person can use it as a springboard to get an even higher level of perception of God. Yeah, God's revealed through the darkness, that even the darkness is really just a way of showing God's light. The idea of Gam Zulatova, even this is for the best. Yeah, the idea where we bless God on the good things which happen and even on the bad things which happen, because we appreciate that even the bad things are ultimately what's best for us. Right? So how about I create some bad and help that revelation? That was his idea. Yeah, and we explained also, put a theme together, is that his mistake in both cases was he realized, he thought that there is a possibility of a person rebelling against God. Yeah, even though technically that obviously was because he had free will, but he should have seen that as just an illusion. What do you mean? Obviously it's not going to end up rebelling against God, so what's the point of even entertaining the other option? Just listen to God. It doesn't make a difference whether we listen or we don't listen. Everything comes back to the final destination point. It's just picking an easier journey for ourselves to go directly to heaven, to be with God forever by listening to him, or by not listening to him, and we're going to end up listening to God through a very complicated, convoluted, painful way, which is the last few thousand years of human history, full of suffering and tragedy and pain. Not to mention Gehenna, hell, in the afterlife, and different things which happen for those who don't fix the problems in this world. Right? Why pick that path? You could have picked the other. You could have picked the easier path. It all comes to the same thing. There's nothing but God. No power but God. Now Rashi is probably the most famous or important commentator which we have on the Talmud and the Chumash, on the Torah. Rav Shlomo Yitzchaki, who lived in 1100s. Yeah, something like that. It's one of the earliest commentators, and you see in any he's the main commentary on the Chumash, the Tanakh, and on the Talmud. So let's have a look what he says here. So we're going to bring up this Bereshis, Genesis chapter 3. This is the story of the sin. Okay, so we're going to actually show Rashi's commentary here. You can look at the rest of it at your own time. There's wisdom in every single line here. Amazing stuff, right? And the serpent or the snake was clever from more than all the other animals of the field, right? As we said, remember the animals then on the same level of intellect as human beings are now, right? And he said to the woman, "Is it true that God said don't eat from any of the fruits of the garden?" And the woman said to the he said, "No, we can eat from most of the fruits, but it's just the one which is in the middle of the garden. God said, don't eat it and don't touch it." So remember, that was you shall not touch it lest you die, right? And we explained yesterday that's basically the Maharal's reason of the root of the sin of Adam, is because he said don't even touch it, even though he didn't. God didn't tell them not to touch it. And in fact, Rashi actually explains it here. Yeah, she added on to the commandment. Therefore, because she added on, it ended up taking away, detracting, or diminishing. What is it? Hushanema. That's what it says in the pasuk, in the verse in Mishlei in Proverbs. Al tosef al dvarav. Do not add on his words. Now, I should point out that this is all before he did the sin. After the sin, where evil is a genuine danger, then we have to put safeguards around the commandments, right? Because now there is a real danger that we'll actually transgress them, as we know from the last few thousand years. Every day someone's sinning, right? So therefore, it's correct to do it because that is the path which Adam chose. He chose the path where evil is the main reality and good is just a quiet voice in the background. Right, and that's how the Maharal explains that as well in his work there at the beginning of his book called Be'er HaGula, if anyone's interested. The first Be'er, the first of the 7 wells, as he calls them. Okay. And the snake says, no, you won't do it. You won't die. And Rashi explains, he pushed her until she touched it. This is all based on the Medrash. The Medrash is written around the time of the Talmud and about year 200 C, something like that. Maybe slightly before. Okay. You won't die because, look, he pushed you against a tree. You see, touching the tree doesn't kill you. Similarly, there's not going to be any death by eating. Right, now this is the key. This is Rashi's, this is the central point of well, that's how I'm interpreting it. The Rashi focuses on this point, which is based on the Medrash. This is the reason which convinced Chava or Eve, which is, there's 2 parts to Adam. Remember, Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve were originally one body and they got separated into 2 different beings. So you can think of Adam being the more spiritual element of man, and Eve, the woman, being the more physically connected aspect of man, because we know male and female correspond to heaven and earth, etc. In Jewish philosophy, in Torah philosophy, I should say. Okay. So what does he say here? So she's the one who's more attracted to sin, because she's the one who's closer to the physical, the place where the danger is. Okay. Because Kiyodei Elokim, the snake goes to explain why she didn't die by touching and why she presumably won't die by eating. Is God lying? So now this is all part of the test, which the snake is meant to do in order to give free will for man. Because God knows, because the day where you eat from it, your eyes will be opened. At the moment, God's created you in such a state where you're essentially blind. You don't see reality as it really is. Right? And when you eat from this tree of knowledge, remember this is knowledge of good and evil, right? The knowledge in the Torah, Yediyah, means connection. Like we have, in fact, in the very next chapter, literally the first verse of the next chapter. Yeah, V'ha'adam yoda, Yud Dalad Ayin, if you're good at recognizing shapes, if you don't speak Hebrew, Yud Dalad Ayin, Yoda es Chava Ishta. He knew Chava, Eve, his wife, right? And she became pregnant and she gave birth to Cain, right? Okay. So knowledge means connection. So the tree of knowledge of good and evil means the tree of connection of good and evil. That's the idea where good and evil become mixed up with each other, which is exactly what happened after, like we explained yesterday, when he ate from the tree, evil become mixed up with his good part. That means his natural tendency, his compass, so to speak, to do good, right, got mixed up with evil. Therefore, his natural tendency to know what's right your instinct to do the right thing, now his instinct is mixed up with good and evil. So he's confused now. Now you have to use your mind to filter out what is true and what is false. Okay. Anyway, you see this word of knowledge the whole time in this chapter, because God knows, right, that on the day which you eat from it, then your eyes will be opened, and you'll be like God, Yodei Tov V'Ra, the one who knows good and bad. So you will also be one who knows good and bad. Oh, interesting. You'll be like angels. Interesting. I didn't. Okay. That's very interesting. Why they translate it as angels? I don't know why they're doing that. Bereshis bara Elokim, in the beginning, God created. I mean, this word Elokim can mean many things. It can refer to God, as we explained before, God's specifically referring to God in his capacity to rule over nature and to guide nature. And the different powers in the world are all ultimately God. That's what Elokim represents. It can also mean judges, it can also mean angels, and it can mean powers, right? Might mean the fifth thing as well. You have to, based on the context, this name is, it's strange. I don't like this translation, angels, unless they're getting it from some medrash, which I'm not familiar with. Okay, but anyway, and you should be like God, and you will also be like him. You will know good and evil, right? So what's going on here? Ki yodea, because God knows. Kol uman sonis b'nei nosei. Every craftsman hates his fellow craftsman. You've got a competition. You've got like a blacksmith. He's very upset if another blacksmith opens up down the road, because now he's got competition, right? Right. So the Nachash, the serpent, is saying now, because he knows that you will be on his level now. Min ha'etz ochal, he ate from the tree of Boras Olam. That's crazy, right? He ate from the tree and created the world. All right. I'm sure they realized that you can't take that as on its surface, because they understood that God was an infinite creator. But the question is, what did God do in order to create the world? God created the world with his knowledge, and maybe the conduit for that, the lens through which he created the world, was through incorporating the idea of good and evil with his creative mind. God's mind is the mind which creates. Okay, so very subtle ideas here. Try best to just grasp what you can of this. Okay, I don't want to expand on everything here. It will take way too long. Okay, so but the basic idea is that if you take it on the surface level, he's making this ridiculous claim that the tree was there, and then he ate from it, and God ate from it and created the world. Okay, we're going to see it's much deeper than that, as we see in the next Rashi, which is the key. V'yisem ke'elokim, and then you'll be like God. I don't know why angels. So strange. But basically, it's obvious what the meaning is here. Rashi explains what the meaning is. All right, never mind. V'yisem ke'elokim, and you'll be like God, Yotzerei Olamos, the creator of worlds. Obviously, I don't know why you speak about angels creating a world. I don't know what they're doing here. All right. And then finally, and the woman, we spoke about the three different explanations about what the fruit was. Was it a fig, wine, or was it wheat? That's all referred to in this. The Maharal speaks about this based on this pasuk. Vatera Isha, the woman saw, ki tova etz l'machol, it's good for eating, right? Right, so the eating is physical desire, that's the fig. And it's desirable or for the eyes represent the idea of the transition of what's inside the mind to what's outside the person's mind. Your eyes let you see what's outside of you. It connects you your mind to the physical world. So that's the idea of connection of the mind to the physical. And that is what the wine does. The wine is the connector between the mind and the body. It lets the mind express like an iron. An iron is a spring. Yeah, iron usually means an eye. It can also mean a spring where the water is hidden below the ground, that now it bursts forth. It's visible on the outside. The idea of the iron is revealing something which is hidden. The eye it literally does that. It reveals what is hidden. And you look at the actual letter itself. Ayin has a numerical value. Every letter is also a number in Hebrew. There's a gematria. So the ayin is 70, and we know that yayin, very conveniently, you've got all three letters of yayin here. Very interesting. I wonder if there's something in that. Yud, nun, yud. Yayin, wine is spelled yud, yud, nun. Yud has got a numerical value of 10. Nun is 50. Yud is 10. So actually, the numerical value of wine is also 70. So just showing a few connections why the eyes are connected with the idea of wine, which is the grapes. That's the second opinion we mentioned yesterday about what the fruit actually was. Because you see, it's all rooted in much deeper ideas. It's not just, oh well, there's that fruit to that. No, these fruits have significant, deeper meanings. Right? One's to do with the physical. It's good to eat. One's to do with I guess you call the pseudo-spiritual or metaphysical. I don't know what the best word is. The bridge between the physical and the spiritual. We usually refer to that as emotions, by the way. Right? That's where the heart is. The heart is the bridge between the brain, which is the spiritual, mental, and the body, which is the physical, like we spoke about the three souls lecture. The body is completely physical. The mind is completely spiritual, whereas the emotions are feelings, so they're kind of spiritual, but they directly affect the physical, right? You can feel the heart beating when you get excited. It makes an impact. His thoughts are much more abstract, much more subtle, I guess you could say. And finally, v'nechmod ha'etz, and desirable is the tree, lehaskil, right? To become wise, right? That's what he's saying. You'll become wise like God. You'll know good and evil. V'tikach mipirio v'tuchal, and she took from the fruit, and she ate, but to think she gave to her husband as well, and he ate. Okay. So we see these three fruits here. By the way, v'nechmod, I think the translation, the Onkelos, the Targum, there's a translation which is put next to the Chumash in Aramaic. It's an ancient translation, which we've got a tradition. It goes all the way back to Sinai. Right? I think it translates v'nechmod as merageg, or something like that, which is the same word as esrog, which is the fourth fruit, which the Maharal brings from the Medrash, that the tree of knowledge was. Just by the way, so you see all four fruits are alluded to in this verse. Okay, but here we're looking at back at this verse. The temptation was, you will be like God. You'll be able to create worlds. What does that mean? Okay, let's go back to me now. Oh, okay. When we speak about God creating the world, I think we mentioned it in a recent lecture about the word olam means heirloom. Heirloom means to hide something. So really, when God creates worlds, what he's doing is he's hiding his light in order to let something else exist independently of him or outside of him. If God wouldn't hold back the light of his presence, the light of his presence again is how God reveals to us his existence, but that revelation itself would be too overpowering, because if we truly appreciate God's the truth of his presence, we would experience, there's literally nothing besides God, and it would go so far that we wouldn't exist. That's why the whole process of the world to come is going step by step. Yeah, we spoke about this yesterday. Getting closer, transversing through the different universes or dimensions, from the physical ones to the ones which get closer and closer to God's reality. And that lasts forever, essentially, with infinite pleasure, and the next level is infinitely more pleasurable than the previous one. It's mind-boggling ideas. We spoke about this in a few different lectures. The one about gratitude, the one about the dimension of time. I think we spoke about this as well. So Yotzrei Elomo. So what does God do in order to create the world? He wants to give the opportunity for something else to exist, and he wants to give that thing which exists the opportunity to be a giver, right? To be that's what we're going to get onto a second. I don't want to mix too many ideas together. The idea is that God creates worlds where good and evil are mixed together. That's the idea of the serpent saying he ate from the tree and created the world. What does that mean? Eating from the tree means you mix good and evil together. What does God do when he creates the world? He creates a world where there's free will. I'm going to create a world of free will, and remember the very first Keystone lecture and the second one as well. Free will is essential for God's purpose in creation, which is that we should earn our reward of being similar to him, right? So we should choose to give good to our bodies and to the physical world. Therefore, and that parallels God's choosing to create a world to do good to us, the soul, and by extension the body. So when God creates a world, think about this carefully. There's so many parallels here. I just can't say all of them. You got to think anything which you see God doing, you can see that reflected in what Adam's trying to do here, right? God creates a world. That means a world means a place where he hides himself, but it gives opportunity for something else to exist, right? A new level of goodness can be revealed through the darkness, right? And he does it through his free will. And he creates a world of free will. That means of knowledge and good and evil, where good and evil are together, mixed up, and now you've got free will, because it's not obvious that you're choosing between a piece of chocolate cake or putting your hand in a fire, like we explained yesterday. It's a chocolate cake which is a bit hot, or putting your hand in a sort of like warm water, which, all right, it's not so bad, but might feel quite nice, the warm water. But everyone knows a nice piece of chocolate cake, even though it's a bit hot, it's much nicer just putting your hand in the water. Might be biased there, right? Yeah. That's the idea. The choices are not obvious anymore, because the good and evil is mixed in. So the snake said, because the snake's trying to make it as convincing as possible, so he gives not just a stupid sort of he wasn't clever and he had to eat from the tree in order to create the world. That's not what the snake's saying, because they detect that lie because it's too obvious, right? They knew God's an infinite wisdom. They're talking about the process he uses to create the world. The way he creates the world is he takes good and evil and mixes them together, right, to create the world of free will, right? As we know, like what we just said, God's light creates the world, but yet in order for the world to be there, he has to hold back the light, which is tantamount to evil, because evil is essentially the lack of God's light. So it's a mixture of giving light for something else to exist, but not putting too much That means I'm holding back my goodness, God says, so to speak, when creating the world, in order that other beings can exist. So even the evil is actually good. God's holding back. The he'elam, the oilam, the hiding is a good thing, right? As it says in the verses in Psalms many times. There's the whole chapter 136 in Psalms. It's got 26 lines and they all finish Ki la'olam chasdo. Thank God for this. Ki la'olam chasdo, because la'olam, the world, forever, is His kindness. You can read it, Ki la'olam chasdo. His kindness is the fact that He holds back. Right? So even though kindness is when you proactively give to something or to someone, right? With God, it's actually the holding back which is the kindness, because it lets there be another being to receive that kindness. So, okay. So God, essentially, this is the idea for the Kabbalists out there. This is the idea of Tzimtzum. The idea of Tzimtzum about the mechanics of how God actually creates things. He creates a place which is void of His light, and then He brings some light in afterwards. That's the kav, the line of light, spiritual light or God, divine light, goes into the void. The combination of the two, you get the creation of all the different worlds. Okay, it's just for the Kabbalists who might be watching this channel. Right. So God creating the world. The snake suggested that he ate from the tree. There might even be some truth in that, because that might be the lens through which he channeled his creative forces in order to create the world, because he can't do it directly, because otherwise he'd overpower creation, so it has to come through some sort of filter, right? Maybe, I'm not 100% sure of that. That's just what makes sense to me at the moment, just speaking. Okay, anyway. But so you can learn that that's what the snake was trying to say. Whether there's some truth in it or not, you can debate that. Anyway, so they say, oh, and what's the purpose of creation again? Remember, Adam knew everything. The purpose of creation is to be similar to God. Just like God's an infinite giver, I should be an infinite giver. And I know that's what God wants from me. He told me that's what the purpose is. Because Adam knew exactly what the purpose of creation was. He knew everything. So therefore, so he reasons like this. Okay, I can listen to God, and that effectively brings in God's light into me, and by extension to my body, and to my wife, I guess, as well, who is the physical being which I'm meant to give to my kindness to, right? My counterpart, right? So you've got man and wife, but you've got the soul and the body. So you've got the internal giving of the mind giving to the body by bringing holiness into the body. And you've got the interpersonal form of giving, is one person to another person. That's man and wife. So I'm meant to be a giver like God. And I know that's what I'm meant to do. And I can do that by listening to God. However, wouldn't it be more similar to God if I did exactly a mirror of what God does to create the world? I create a world where there's free will. I'm going to create real free will, real evil, because remember, everything which is outside of God is essentially evil if you could contrast it to God, because God is perfection. So anything which is not perfect, if those are the only two things in the universe, this is good, that's evil. Right? For the Kabbalists there, it's the Sephira of Keser and Malchus. Right? And we all know that Malchus is not evil, but it's the root of evil in the world. It's the 10th of the 10 midas of Hashem, the 10th of His characteristics. It's the one where free will comes from, one where evil comes from, and free will. Right? Whereas Keser is where everything comes from. That's the crown. That's the place where everything is pure and unified. Right? And Malchus is the last of the 10, where everything gets expressed. the expression happens when we actually have evil in the world and free will, and we actually go through the actions of choosing good, and that's the purpose of creation ultimately. But it's through the evil though. It's through that malchus. If you want to look at the kabbalistic level, I'm showing that there's so many layers of this. It's just wish people would appreciate the absolute genius of what's going on here. Try my best. With God's help, hopefully, people appreciate this. Right. So Adam's looking, he's saying, well, God, surely he wants me to do evil. Right? Very similar to the Ramchal's explanation, but it's a different way of looking at it. It's casting a new angle. Surely God wants me to sin, because he wants me to be like him, right? And he indeed, like the snake says, that's a temptation. He's doing his job, the Satan, the Satan, the snake, which is a physical manifestation of the Satan. He's doing his job to present a rational reason why to sin, because he has to give free will. Yeah, God created the Satan himself. God created the Satan. He created the tempter, the one who gives temptation to sin. I should be doing that. If God wants me to be similar to him, look at what he did to create the world. He created something which, compared to him, is evil and has free will. Good and evil is mixed together. He created the being to tempt. And he created beings who are able to have the choice to choose between good and evil, in order that when they choose good, or the harder journey, repentance or suffering, that they will go to the world to come. I want to do all of that. So what does Adam do? He says, right, how do I do it? I'll eat from the tree, and I'll bring evil into the world even more. Just like God did when he created, he held his light back. So I'm going to hold even more of God's light back by eating from the tree. I'm going to mix good with evil. That's going to create a new existence, a new, what's the word? A new paradigm of free choice. Yeah, it's not free choice like God created, because where I've got a choice between something which is obviously good, obviously bad. I'm gonna take the journey further, right? I'm gonna push it along the line a bit more and create my own version of free will. I'm gonna make me and my descendants have such a strong inclination to evil that it's going to be the natural choice will be to do evil now, not to do good. So even though I've got free will now, my natural tendency is to do good. So therefore you could say, compared to absolute obedience to God, there's a possibility of evil. Okay, fine, so I'm going to do that. So instead of, right, so sort of like, right, there's a possibility of total obedience, but there's also a possibility of rebellion. So I'm going to do that on this level, right? The choice is going to be, am I going to struggle to do good, or is my natural tendency going to be to do evil, right? So now you have the idea of the pulling of evil, and all of mankind does that, has that attribute, has that quality, the natural tendency for evil. Not only that, God created me, a human being. So I'm going to have children as well, right? And so I'm creating human beings who will now have this temptation of evil, right? And God created the Satan, the Satan, the tempter, right? So I'm going to create a new Satan. That means not one which is outside, because that was the one God made. I'm going to make my own one. My own one is creating Satan inside the body, to be part of myself, right? And that's by eating from the tree. When God, so to speak, ate from the tree, if depending how you understand that Rashi, right? According to the words of the snake, was it complete lies or was there some element of truth in it? When God, so to speak, used the tree, right, in his creative process to create a being which can tempt. But remember that temptation was only so far. It was outside of Adam. When I'm going to create this being which can tempt, I'm going to take it yet another stage further. I'm going to eat a second time from the tree, so to speak. God did it first, so to speak, and now I'm doing it. I'm going to create a new level of evil, a new temptation, a new source of temptation, which is a Satan, right? And yeah, and you see, this is what Adam was thinking, according to Rashi. I want to be like God. And you know what? I think that's what God actually wants me to do. So the question is, why didn't God tell him then? Right? Don't eat from the tree. But you know what? I really want you to rebel and eat from the tree. If God would have said that, then since God is saying it, you're not creating evil because you're attaching yourself to God's command. Yeah, like we said yesterday, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Don't eat from the tree, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Yeah. That would be enough to say that no, eating from the tree is a good thing. Because remember, God defines what's good and evil at the end of the day. So it had to be that God didn't tell him anything or didn't even hint to him that he wanted to eat from the tree. And Adam had to work that out himself and come to the conclusion, logically, God wants me to rebel against him. And of course, since he's rebelling, he gets punished. But that's the whole point. Bring more evil in. Get punishment. We see further on in that chapter what happens to Adam, right? They knew their eyes were open when they ate, and they took the figs of a fig leaf. That's the source why it was a fig that they ate, because all the other trees, as Rashi says, hid their fruits. Right, hid their leaves. They said, "You're not taking from us, you sinner," right? And they heard God's voice going in the garden. Right, he asked him, "Ayeko, where are you?" That's the words Eicho, which is the Hebrew word for the book of Lamentations. It's the book of Eicho, one of the 24 books of the Tanakh, which is speaking about the destruction of the temple. Ultimately, it all stemmed from this very first sin of Adam, right, etc. Right, and then he goes blaming. He has the opposite of what we're meant to do in this world, which is having gratitude to God. Instead, he says, when God asks, "Why did you eat from it?" The woman which you gave me, she gave me from the tree to eat. Kan kofa batova. Here, he showed his ingratitude. Right. So again, everything Adam was doing was trying to create as much evil as possible. If the pleasure of world to come comes through gratitude, like we explained in the lecture about gratitude, so therefore he's trying to get as far away from that as he can now by being koifer tov, by being ungrateful, right? And then the woman says, he says to the woman, "Why do you do it?" "Because the snake convinced me." and then the snake, unfortunately for him, he's doing his job, tempting, but he has to get punished. Yeah, because that's part of what Adam chose for him. He wanted the evil to be an actually bad, not just like the officer, the female officer trying to seduce the prince, like we spoke yesterday. He wants it to be an actual fully powerful negative force in the world to create as much temptation and evil as possible, and therefore he punishes the snake, right? I put anger and hatred between you and the woman. You wanted the woman, because we know that the rabbis say that, as Rashi explains, should go through the whole chapter with Rashi. It's so enlightening, right? You wanted that Adam should die, and then because he would eat first, and then you would marry Eve, right? So therefore, you wanted to seduce Eve. So therefore, I'm going to make it that women are scared of creepy crawlies, basically, right? They're scared of the snake. They hate snakes, right? And between your seed and her seed, right? That means mankind is going to have an enemy in the animal world, which is the snake, right? He can smash you on the head, but you can actually attack him at the heel. That means now it's a beautiful idea, right? And then there's the 10 curses which God gave to the snake. Then another 10 curses he gave to the woman, a lot to do with childbirth and rearing children and her relationship with her husband. Just look at Rashi here if you want. And then 10 curses to man, right? There's 9 curses of the land itself, that it won't produce fruit efficiently anymore. It won't do its job properly in the world. And man will have trouble making a livelihood, which is, if you think about it, it's actually incredible. And this is the end. And then it carries on, and Adam called his wife Chava, Eve, because she's the mother of all Chai, which means life. Yeah. It's quite amazing. Why do human beings have to work for their food? Any other creature in creation is got ready-made food, right? The birds that just go around, oh, there's a worm, eat it, fine, right? One animal eats another one because there's abundance of the other animal around, fine. Plants, they get their nutrients from the ground, right? And the rain and the sun. Why is human beings so different from everyone else, right? That's all the curse of Adam, right? It says when the world to come, as we get closer to Mashiach, there won't be so much need for work because that light, we've been fixing that damage which was done by Adam. So therefore, naturally, the curse of Adam will start to go away. And it's interesting, notice that with the modern medicine and modern agricultural methods and the Industrial Revolution, right? And they say now with the AI and robots and things like that, people don't have to work as hard as they used to. Even the ones who are still in agricultural society, they've got combine harvesters, right? They don't have to go toiling the whole day in the field doing physical lifting stuff up. To an extent they do, but not like it used to be, right? Now we could just go to the shop, buy food ready-made, right? We could buy clothes ready-made, which never happened before. You used to have to go to a tailor. Clothes used to be very expensive, but now you've got production lines, you've got automated and sewing machines and things like that. So we're coming closer to that time where we're able to hopefully just focus all our thoughts and our time on knowing God. That's the idea, but that's part of the curse. The curse of Adam was you're going to have to work hard. And you won't be able to get back to me so easily now. Right? We spoke about this in the lecture about bitochen, about trusting God, faith and trust. Okay, so we see what happens with the snake, right? As a result of this, if you look at all the curses, there's going to be an element of something which Adam did wrong, which caused that curse. By the way. Again, not getting into it, that's way too much. Again, look at it yourself. I'm sure you'll see the pattern. Once you understand the core ideas, which I'm explaining to you now, you'll hopefully see some beautiful ideas coming up. Why was Eve cursed with childbirth pains? Right? That's creation. But you want to make creation. You want to create other human beings with real evil inside. You're causing your offspring to suffer. So therefore, when you give birth to them, you suffer. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, etc. Right, so we see the snake. What was the snake's curse, right? That man will be able to crush him. That's the idea of, on the deeper level. Remember, the snake is not just an animal. It's also, you can take it on a deeper level as well, meaning evil, or the temptation, the tempter of evil, which is the Satan. You can crush him, right? We've got the ability to beat evil, but it's not just ignoring evil now. You've got to destroy evil. That's, as I said before, it's not good enough just to not eat from the tree. Now we've got to proactively protect ourselves from evil. We've got to put fences around the laws, right, as precautions. Don't do this in case you might break one of the commandments, right? As we know, most of the Talmud is full of the rabbis' decrees to distance yourself from, God forbid, sinning. Right, so you've got rabbinical prohibitions which protect the biblical ones. So we have to now actively go and crush the head of the snake. We have to destroy evil directly now, right? Not just ignore it. Because remember, the evil's inside of us now. So we have to purge the evil out of us. It's not just good enough, I'm perfect, and there's a bit of evil there and just ignore it. No, the evil's in you. It's part of you. You can't, I'm not perfect anymore. Intrinsically, I'm not perfect. There's evil inside me. Smash it. Right? That's the curse of the snake. You're going to get killed now by Adam, right? But you're going to have the ability to bite him at the heel. And how does biting at the heel kill a person? It's not the heart, right? Where you kill a person. It's because there's poison. A snake can give poison. Once the poison hits the heel is a place where people are most careless. You know, you're looking where you're going. You make sure someone's about to hit you. You duck and everything. Your body. The heel is something which reglayim, the feet, of regilus, habits, or as it says in the beginning of chapter 8 or chapter 7, the beginning of Parshas Eikev in Deuteronomy. It will be because you listen to my voice that all good things will happen. But Eikev can also mean the heel, because you listen to the mitzvahs which people trample on with their heels. They do the commandments by rote. If you do these ones properly, like not doing it by rote, by being conscious of them, then you get amazing blessings, as it says there in chapter 7, halfway through chapter 7, I think. Yeah, halfway through chapter 7. And I think it should be around verse 12 or something like that. Right, so and we know Rabbi Tatz said a beautiful idea, probably from Moshe Shapiro, that the heel is the only part of the body which is dead, because you've got dead skin here, right? Obviously, this isn't my heel, right? Be a monkey otherwise, long toes there, because it can bear the weight of the person's weight. That's what the heel is. So there's some dead skin. You can actually take a needle and put it in a certain depth into the heel without feeling pain, right? The one thing it is sensitive to is tickling. The whole discussion about that, about the idea of distraction. Nowadays, we are the generation of the heel. Therefore, we are so desensitized to spirituality. Most people in the world are not in contact with spirituality at all. Yeah, a good number anyway. But what are they sensitive to? To tickling. That means something which gives you momentary pleasure and then it goes away straight away. That's the idea of like drugs or iPhones, things like that. People are just addicted to like momentary pleasures which go away, so you have to have more again. All right. Anyway, so the snake attacks us by the heel, by the place where we're most vulnerable, where we don't have our life force there. So he tries to get us, okay, keep all the commandments, but just do this one by rote. You did this one the last 20 years every day. Just get on with it, get it over and done with. Once the evil gets in, then it's like a poison. It starts to corrupt other parts of the person's being. And eventually saying, okay, I just can't be bothered doing my daily prayers today. Eventually it'll get there. And then I'm just giving up on prayers. And then I won't even put the phylacteries on the tefillin, and then eventually he'll end up giving up everything potentially. Yeah, if a person's really weak and doesn't beat the evil inclination on any of those stages. So that's the idea of the snake now infiltrating into the body of the person. His venom, his poison, poisons a person from the inside. Because now evil has become part of who we are. If you look at the Yom Kippur lecture we gave on the Day of Atonement, we explained that's what's happening on the Day of Atonement. We're removing that aspect of evil which becomes part of us, and then we realize, no, that's not me. Evil is actually something which is not me. I'm essentially a good person. I've just been tricked because evil is inside me. It's tricking me to do bad. And then God says, so you don't associate yourself with evil? So I'll wipe it away. Yom Kippur, the day of wiping, literally. I'll wipe off the surface because you've just brought that evil which is inside of you to the surface to be something external to you. All right. Right. Now, this is what happens. This is what happened when... I'll finish off with this. I want to say some other stuff as well. Yeah, I think these ideas will go in the Lashon Hara shir, which I'm attending, the evil tongue, the one about gossip. Hopefully I'll do one of that sometime. I'm going to these other ideas. All from Rabbi Kessin, amazing. That's his keynote lecture about amazing. It's what got me into Rabbi Kessin's lectures in the first place. A very famous lecture he gave around the world about the dangers of gossip. Seems very innocuous, but if you appreciate what it is, the power of the mouth is incredible. And it's connected with a lot of what we're saying today about the sin of Adam. Right, so what happened is that Adam had his own source of chiyus, of life force, coming directly from God, and the Satan also had its source of livelihood, not just livelihood, life force, creative force which keeps him in existence. So therefore, whether Adam sinned or not, the Satan's basically the same, doesn't change. But Adam did something to the Satan, to the Nochash, as we see from the curses of the snake, where he incorporated evil inside of him. Now he's got battle on the inside to do good and evil. There's something else which is going on. Now the Satan is actually become sort of part of Adam, in a way, right? In the kabbalistic level, it's described as one of the clothings of the soul. You've got the deepest part of the soul, then you've got the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination is like a clothing on that. Then you've got another clothing on top of that, which is the evil inclination, right? So we've got the ability to actually transform evil into good, like we spoke about in Keystone Lecture 3b about the Shema, about the idea of serving God with all your hearts. That means the good heart and the bad heart, the good and evil inclination. That means taking the physical world and elevating it. The lecture about Abraham and what he brought to the world, his novelty was. It's connected with that. So essentially now the Satan is part of us, right? But there's a danger though now. God says, all right, there's only one of you. To an extent, it's more complicated than that, but there's one of you, so you are going to share my divine creative force. That means, but it's going to be totally up to man to determine how much each one of you get. If mankind, a human being, chooses good all the time, he'll get all the divine energy, and that will literally kill the Satan. Evil will just die and perish. It will shrivel up. It'll lose all its force, all the light which is giving it existence. If he sins, then I let the Satan, leech off the pipe. So imagine you've got a pipe coming down from God's, let's say, of light, of divine light, and then there's a split in it, like a delta in a river, sort of. That delta, right? And one pipe leads off to this side, the other leads off to that side. The light, natural, will go all to man, but if he sins, the Satan can turn on his magnet or whatever and draw and sort of get nurture and spiritual nutrition from the light, and that would weaken Adam. And this culminated ultimately in the generation which went down to Egypt, which we got Passover coming up next week, right? The Jewish people in Egypt were so ruled over by the Egyptians. It wasn't just the bodies were slaves to the Egyptians. They were spiritually slaves to the Egyptians, because the Egyptians used the power of the Satan, of evil and witchcraft and things like that, to dominate over the Jews. They tapped into that life force in such a deep way where it was naturally impossible to escape from Egypt. Okay, we might give a lecture about Passover. Maybe we'll bring that in. I'll give you a taster now. So now there's a battle, right? And by the way, Lashon Hara is the thing which gives the ability. Gossip is a final key that the Satan needs to actually draw the energy to his side. We'll explain that in the Lashon Hara, the gossip, slander lecture, hopefully. Please God. So now what's going on now is you've got an existential battle between man and the Satan, right? And even though it's all dependent on what Adam does, the Satan can still take the energy from man by getting man to sin. So therefore the Satan has to get man to sin now. So now the Satan is invested personally in getting man to sin, right? He's still doing his job, but he's there's a big difference between persons getting paid a very nice wage to do a job, and he's also, his life is on the line. So imagine you've got someone who has to, I don't know, write a computer program for like a spreadsheet, a database for a company. So he's getting paid like £100,000 a year or something like that, right? So he's doing it, yeah, getting on with it. I'm going to get paid a lot of money, right? Now imagine if the deal was you're getting paid 100,000, and if you don't do it, we're going to kill you. He's going to work much harder now. Right? His whole life depends on his success now. So now the Satan, because he's part of Adam, right, and he needs Adam's life force to exist, he's desperate to get Adam to sin now. He needs it, otherwise he'll be destroyed. Which ironically, if he would succeed too much, then Adam would disappear. There'll be no point in the universe anymore, and he would get destroyed anyway. So he has to get that balance. Very interesting. That's why the Satan is also known as the guardian angel of Amalek. Amalek we spoke about on Purim. Amalek's raison d'etre is to destroy the Jewish people and cut God out from this world. But once they do that, they cease to exist. Like the Satan does. The Satan will cease to exist if he fully succeeds. So now, but this is all part of Adam's plan. I want evil to be part of me in such a way where I'm going to get the hardest test possible. And that's only if the one who's tempting me is fully invested in making me fail. Right? So the Satan is still doing God's plan, God's will by getting man to sin, but now he's got, it's personal now. Right? So therefore he's got an extra sort of push to do it, if that makes sense. Right. Okay. So that's basically Rashi's explanation. We'll explain the whole story there in quite a decent amount of depth. right? And that's the idea of the snake now infiltrating into man, right? You've got this fight between them now. He's going to smash you on the head, right? He's going to literally kill you if he succeeds, but you've got the opportunity to poison him and maybe get in and bring him to your side. Now we've got real free choice, and that's what Adam wanted. Just like God gave me free choice, I'm giving my descendants and mankind real, even more powerful free choice to be like God, right? And of course, this was a sin, right? It has to be a sin, because otherwise you're not creating more free will, right? It has to be evil what you're doing, Adam. Therefore, God didn't want him to do it, right? Was this God's plan all along? So the Arizal says, yes, it was, right? God actually wanted him to do the sin, but he couldn't tell him, right? And obviously, you'll see by the fact that he did it, retroactively, we see that's what happened. So again, we're getting into the murky territory of free will and God's foreknowledge. But look at it from the point of God's foreknowledge, he wanted this to happen. Once we've done something, then we can say God wanted that to happen. But I can't say it before I do a sin, God wants me to do the sin, because you've got genuine 100% free will at that moment, right? Once it's happened, then we focus on the other side of the paradox, that actually God wanted me to do this, right? And yet, how does that work? Because the sin in the end is going to create a high level of revelation of God's oneness. So ultimately, if you think about Rashi's approach, it actually comes down again to the idea of Giluy Yichud, revealing God's oneness. Yep. I want to be exactly like God, so I can be as close to God as possible, right? And experience God's oneness, right? But that's from the superficial level. But on the deeper level, I'm going to create more evil, which is going to be a higher level of revelation of God's oneness than if I would have just done good. So from both sides, it all comes down to Giluy Yichud, revealing God's oneness, right? I want to experience what it's like to be God, and I know that's what God wants from me, so therefore I'm going to copy God the best I can, and so that's revelation of God's oneness, because I'm trying to get that revelation, experience it. But practically, what am I doing? I'm doing something which is actually going to create a high level of Giluy Yichud. Bang! It's unbelievable. However you look at it, from different angles, it just ends up being the same thing. It's mind-blowing. I really hope you appreciate this one. It's just so beautiful, right? As everything in Torah is, just sometimes we can appreciate it a bit more. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. So we've got the three approaches to what caused Adam to do the sin. First of all, we've got the Maharal. Well, Rashi chronologically is before the Maharal, but the order we've chosen to go in is Maharal's one. He recognized he had free will, and therefore he felt he had to put a safeguard, not to touch the tree, right? But his physical aspect ended up touching the tree and failing, which is Eve, the woman. And you could say the idea of the woman needs to be connected to, if the woman's going to have her rectification from the sin, she needs the man with her, right? Because they're meant to work together. The idea of Oris and Kalim, lights and vessels. Yeah, so maybe that's why Adam ate from the tree, when he saw that the physical aspect of his half, of his hybrid being, man and woman together, when he saw that his physical half failed, right? So yeah, got to go along with this, right? Yeah, I need to help bring my physical side back up, right? So therefore I'm going to go down as well, and we're both going to come up together. Okay. Anyway, so that's the Maharal's approach, the idea of recognizing he had free will. That was the sin itself intrinsically, it's just the eating was the finishing off. The Ramchal's approach was that he wanted to create a higher level of, he wanted to create more opposition to God in order to reveal a higher dimension of God's omnipotence, that even the evil is not an opposition to God at all. It's actually God's will, ultimately. And then you have Rashi's, which we explained today, which is that he wanted to be similar to God, right? Similar to God in creating a world which has darkness, which has free will, which has a temptation in it, which has a tempter in the world, right? And to produce children which are going to have this temptation and this free will, ultimately with the purpose of breaking that evil which is in front of them, right? Not just in front of them now, but inside of them. And by doing that, that's the hardest form of test, is when we feel we want to do evil and we have to somehow miraculously realize that we're not our evil inclination, even though we naturally feel it, and we have to overcome it. So that is the highest level of revealing God in the darkness, right? So all the ideas come down to revealing God on the highest level possible, which is through darkness, right? Either by Maharal, by recognizing that there is another power besides him, right? Me, I could sin. The Ramchal, by trying to actually create this new level of evil, and by Rashi's approach, which is, I want to be similar to God, but that in itself, we didn't mention this, there's some ego in that. So you want to be similar to God? Just listen to God. Don't make your own calculations, right? Okay, there you go. And those are 3 explanations of the sin of Adam. Beautiful. I hope you appreciated that. Thanks for listening, everyone. And I hope to see you. Well, I won't see you really. I hope you see me in the next video. Okay, in the next lecture. Thanks for watching, and all the best. Bye for now.